renowned therapist, holistic life coach, host of the popular podcast, the Michelle Chalfant. Did I
You
get
got it.
that? Okay.
Got it, baby.
Show Life from the Adult Chair, and now author of the book, The Adult Chair Get Unstuck, Claim Your Power, and Transform Your Life is here. Hi, Michelle.
Hey, Kelly.
Thank you so much for being here. We're just talking. I had no idea we had such a connected past. You used to live in Nashville, you used to live in Charleston, all these places I'm frequenting all the time or live. It seems like we probably have crossed paths along the way, but I'm happy to finally get to meet you and so grateful you're here.
Yeah, we will intentionally cross paths now in the future.
Yes. Okay. I like this. Well, I was telling you before the podcast, I love this idea of the adult chair, right? Like, I think we've all grown up and you get into your adult life and you realize, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And I'm not an adult, actually, but I'm here. And so I want to talk first about what is the adult chair model? How did you
Yeah,
even come up with this?
yeah. It's honestly based on many, many mentors that I've had over the years. It's a culmination of a lot of different people's ideas, as well as feedback that I got with my own clients and my own intuition. It's a big
Okay.
melting pot of a whole bunch of stuff, I'd say. So, the adult chair is a model that really teaches us who we are today and then how we got that way. So, that's the whole part one of the book. And part two is how do we grow into a healthy adult self? Because the truth of it is, even though we look our age and we're physically an adult on the outside, and the inside, we aren't quite acting like healthy adults all the time,
Right.
right? So, like when we're stressed out or maxed out with our day and we come home and we have a bottle of wine or eat a chocolate cake or do something, pick a vice, it doesn't matter what it is. That's us. Again, not that it's a bad thing, but
Sure.
that's us when we are acting from a different aspect of who we are. It's a younger part of self.
Mhm.
Or when we act out, we have an adult temper tantrum, right? That is us acting from a lower or a younger part of self. And we honestly live this way so much of our day and so much of our lives, we don't even know it. So
So
if I'm
that's it.
walking, yeah, if I'm walking around like controlling or judging or with
Yeah.
codependency, that's not really who you are.
No. But you're so the adult chair is the place you try to go learn how
Yes.
not to operate from that place.
Yeah. So the actual model is broken down into three developmental phases of life. So we've
Okay.
got chair one, which is the child chair. This is where we are all born into, we're born and we wind up in the child. That's age 0 to 6. We learn all about our emotions there. We learn about our needs, like I need a hug. I need you to tell me that I'm lovable. I need, you name it. I need a diaper change, like whatever it might be when we're 0 to 6. We learn about our needs. We learn about passion, vulnerability, intimacy. We learn about so many beautiful things while we're in this phase. But here's the thing that blows my mind, Kelly. During the ages of 0 to 6, this is when we create a roadmap that we live off of for the rest of our lives. So let's just think about this for a second. Go back to when you were 6 years old and think about what year that was.
Oh
And
gosh.
imagine, yeah, and imagine someone then, think about that year and you live in Nashville. So think about
Yeah.
printing. I know Nashville very well because I live there, but think about printing out a map from when you were 6 and someone handing you a paper map and says, navigate around town using this map. You couldn't.
No.
But yet that's what we do as adults. And during this phase of our lives, this is where we are creating how to respond, what to believe in, what's safe, what's not safe. Am I a crier? Am I not a crier? Can I feel my emotions? Can I not feel emotions? Am I allowed to have needs? Or is it safe to have needs or not? Am I abandoned? Am I not abandoned? All of this stuff gets put on this roadmap. And then the roadmap around the age of 7 drops into the unconscious mind. And then this is where the ego starts to really come online and develop. So the ego develops from around, again, the ego's with us from birth, but it really comes online strongly around 6 to about 24. And that's what we call the adolescent chair, which is chair number 2. So
Okay.
we move there. And this is where we learn, again, we're living from that map. We are learning all about, so the ego is the part of us that says, I'm separate from you. So if I'm not part of this oneness energy, like I remember when I was born and I'm actually an individual, I got to keep myself safe. I got to keep myself alive. So I
Mm,
can't live in the present. I have to live in the past or the future. I've got to base I'm trying to make guesses about what's coming in front of me in the future based on what I've experienced in the past.
mm,
Again, 97%, I think it's the stat I read was 97% of the time when we make assumptions like Kelly's going to be mad at me because I didn't call her back yesterday. I know she's probably pissed, da, 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 all these things that we make assumptions about. 97% of the time we're inaccurate.
I
Just
believe that now, but if you had told me that 10 years ago, no chance.
right?
That's interesting, yeah.
We think that we're going to predict the future, but in essence,
Exactly.
no, it's the ego trying to like keep us safe and alive.
Mhm,
So this is where we develop into all these like egoic parts or parts of self. And this is also where we're also creating these masks that we live behind to keep
mhm,
ourselves safe. So again, if I learn when I'm young not to cry because maybe I got bullied by my siblings or my mother said, don't be a crybaby or whatever that might be, I actually cover up my authentic self and I become someone else that is more lovable and acceptable by you. So these are the masks that every human wears. And this is again when we're building this false self. So some of us live from a very, very big false self and others somewhat of a false self. So that's what's happening during all these years up from 7 to 24. And then around the age of 25, we slide into the adult chair. And this is the part of us that represents living in the present moment, living with fact and truth versus story and assumption. This is where we set boundaries, where I'm able to really connect into my child part and feel my emotions,
mhm.
witness my thoughts that are in the adolescent share instead of acting on every single one of them. And the prefrontal cortex is online. So we have this self-governing nature, this higher self part of us that's coming down and helping us to make decisions if we're willing to listen. So that's the whole model. So when I explain this to people, they go, this makes so much sense. When I was a child, my mother leaned heavily on me and I felt like I had to take care of her. So that must be why now I'm codependent and
Mhm.
or this is why I'm a people pleaser or this is why I feel needless and wantless because I wasn't allowed to have those when I was a little kid. So life starts making sense to people when they really understand it. Part 2 of the book again has 5 pillars and that's where I go through exactly how to grow into this healthy adult self.
Yeah, because the chairs, when you just described them just now, I thought to myself, well, that sounds lovely that it would just, we would flow through these chairs into life and then we would just end up in the adult chair and it would be easy to like find our adult self and learn how to navigate the world. But what happens, and maybe this is jumping ahead a little bit because we will get into the pillars, but you described maybe like when you're 0 to 6, if you were abandoned, if you didn't get
Mhm.
the nurturing that you need, how is that impacting the rest of our situations in chairs
Mm.
as we develop? Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, yes. I just did a podcast earlier with someone, and if I'm just going to share her example, it was so
Okay.
beautiful. So she's in a relationship with this guy, and she was asking me, why do I feel like I can't set strong boundaries and all the things with him? And I actually did an experience with her on the show.
Oh,
I
nice.
said, well, how does it make you feel to speak up for yourself and share how you feel? She says, "Oh, that's really unsafe. I'm not doing that." And I said, "Well, how do you know it's unsafe? Where do you
Mm,
feel that in your body?" And a lot of what I do is really help people feel their emotions, get more embodied, all this kind of thing. And she says, "Well, it's in my heart. My heart feels tight." And I said, "Go there. Let's go there right now." And she went there and she said, I'm going to summarize this whole thing, but she said, "Oh yeah." She says, "I don't feel safe really sharing my vulnerabilities with him." And she said, "I'm afraid I'm going to get left."
mm,
And I said, "What was your earliest memory of that?" And she said, "I was 4 years old. And my mother divorced my father, but I felt like my father left, even though my mother divorced him." And she was teary eyed. I said, "There's the route that's
yeah.
on the roadmap. So you're living now." I think she was in her 50s. And she said, yeah, she said, or 40s, excuse me. She said, yeah, I said, "So do you see how this is all connected?
Mhm.
You, as a 40 something year old woman, you're dating this guy and you are navigating from a place of fear of being left. That means every decision you make, every time you want to control him or manipulate him, and that's not a bad thing. this little kid inside of you that's 4 is so worried that she's going to be left. That's what's
Right.
happening. So then we go into our control mode. Maybe you have anxiety when he's out of touch for too long and you need a text, you need a phone call. So all of these things are happening in our world as adults. But again, it's the roadmap from way back when that's
Mm,
actually creating this. I don't want to go so far as to call it dysfunction, and sometimes it is, but it doesn't even have to be that strong of a word. But the way we navigate relationships, the way we navigate our careers, the way we navigate as a parent, it goes back to what happened 0 to 6. So it
right.
all is like together, if that makes sense.
So you could be in your 50s operating like your 4-year-old self,
Totally.
which
And
is
we do.
wild. Yes,
We
it's
all
just
do.
crazy to think about, but we all do it a lot.
We all do it every single day.
That's
Mhm.
crazy. I love that you mentioned, the body experiencing because it's almost like what I hear a lot of in your work is combining your background in therapy with the somatic stuff, and so I find those to be so helpful,
Mhm.
just working together because it is so much in our body, and a lot of times, I think talk therapy misses that connection, and it's just analyzing and keeping you in your logical mindset. You actually say the word therapist is an outdated term, and I wanna talk a little bit about that because I found that's so interesting coming from a therapist.
Okay, don't hate me. No
Well,
hate
just
mail,
tell us
please.
what it's about.
Okay. No, okay. Here is what I mean by that. No, people are like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that." What I've said is therapy needs to be updated. And I have
Yeah,
a lot of therapist friends, and they all agree. This is why I created a coaching certification program because it's like I said to you earlier, it's a hybrid. I'm
right.
not, it's sort of like in between a coach and a therapist because there are some good things in therapy, but therapy, in my opinion, is a little outdated, but I'm glad to see that it's catching up with who we are today. I loved learning about, I remember a few years ago, I was reading about like, tapping
Oh,
EFT
yeah. Yeah.
readings, like God bless, we were able to do that in therapy. Like therapy has a lot of chains, like tight
Mhm.
boundaries around what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do. I remember like when I had a client and they were sobbing, and this is a client I'd known for 5 years, let's say, and they're hysterical. I remember this one client hysterically crying because her brother had just died.
Oh, man.
As a therapist, as a licensed therapist, I'm not allowed to hug her. That is what I mean by we need to update
Yeah.
therapy and change for the way that we are today, like the times that we're in today. Those sorts of things don't work. We need to incorporate, in my opinion, more with the body, more energy medicine.
Mhm.
I want to understand what's really going on energetically. When we understand that our emotions are just an energy that are
Mhm.
running through the body. When I explain that to people, they go, "Oh my God, that makes so much sense." I'm like, "Yes, it does, doesn't it?" Like it's an energy. Our bodies are and we're energy beings first. We are energy beings in human suits. So I am like a beautiful river, as are you, as every single person on the planet is. And when we have an emotion that doesn't feel good, it's like a log moving through the river. And if we don't know how to feel that emotion, that energy, the log gets jammed. So what do? We need to go into the body. We need to look at that. We need to do maybe some feeling work. We need to
Mm.
feel all of those kinds of things. So I just feel like therapy has needed an update, and I do feel like it's happening. Thank God. Again, most of my therapist friends, I'm saying most just because honestly, I don't know of one of them that wouldn't agree with me.
Yeah.
A
I mean,
little
I
bit
know
outdated.
my listeners are like, "Oh my god, Kelly, this is Kelly's, like, favorite guest ever." The stuff that you're saying is so spot on to the things that I feel, and
Yeah.
even why I wanna do this podcast because I feel like there's such a bigger picture to this healing journey
Mhm.
than just going and sitting in therapy, and I've done that, and it was saved my life. Like, I'm not at all trying to downplay the gift of talk therapy. I just then think it's like a starting point, and then there's so much more that you can start to incorporate, that you can do with your body work, the energy work, just
Mhm.
like you're saying, that's all we talk about on this podcast, and it's all so connected to me. I don't really understand why we have them in different categories.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the problem is too, is like any practitioner, like any pick any Pick a teacher, pick an attorney, pick anyone out there that has a job. There are good, there are mediocre, and there are some that aren't so good.
Yeah.
I unfortunately had the experience of seeing various therapists. They just weren't very good. They weren't great. And I've had therapists, no joke. One woman was so triggered by what I was saying. Like I was talking about this is when I first moved to Nashville. My father was an identical twin, and I had issues around it. I really wanted to work through it. And there was a lot of stuff that happened in my childhood because of that. My dad chose my uncle over us. I mean, there's all this stuff. And I went to this therapist, and she was an identical twin, and she started crying in my session. I had to literally finish the session, and then she charged me. I'm like, "Are you freaking kidding me? Like, come on, man. Like, this is
No.
not okay." That's
No.
why I have the adult chair coaching certification program where I certify coaches the way that I coach, the way that
Yeah.
I do work with people. And one of the main things, I say this to anybody that sees anybody. One of the main things that I push hard on all my coaches is you must do your personal work. And we do a ton of it
Mm,
in the program because you can only take people as far as you've gone.
yes.
And there are a lot of therapists out there. And if we're in the helping profession, I know therapists and coaches, let's face it, we want to do that work because we ourselves are wounded and we want, and that's why we're drawn to it. But we've got to do our own work. So if you're interviewing someone as a coach or a therapist, you have every right to ask them, like, do you do your work? What, I love when people ask that question. I'm like, I live for doing my work. I want to be able to take my clients as far as I can possibly go. I will always do my work. It will always be there. Not as
Yeah.
intensely as it was when I was growing up. But anyway, that's a side note. So I hope I clear that up for everybody. But yeah, we need an update, Kelly, for sure.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're talking about that because I completely agree. I mean,
Yeah.
while we're on this topic, what do you think the biggest thing that people, now that we've talked about the therapist side of it, what do you think the biggest thing that people um maybe get wrong about the healing journey or a growth mindset? Like, what are people missing that you see in your work?
Um, they don't know how to do it. They don't know
Mhm.
where to turn. Um, is that the answer you're looking for? Because
Yeah, I think, I mean, again, like this is why I want to do this podcast because I've been on
yeah,
a long-term growth mindset lifestyle and it's changed everything for me, but it's such a part of my life now that I don't even really realize that I'm
yeah,
doing it. And when I talk about certain things, I literally will watch people kind of cower almost like it's almost like it's intimidating to hear about and oh, let's
yeah,
not talk about that because then, whatever. And it's like to me the most freeing experience, I guess. And so
yes.
I always think that. Like I think to myself, "Oh man, I wish they could just see how it would feel on the other side because it's freeing, it's not constricting, it's not jail, it's not
Mhm.
so scary once you start doing it, like those kind of things, you know?"
Oh my gosh, yes. You're speaking my love language, Kelly. I swear I love this. I'm like, yes, thank you.
Likewise.
Because I I will share anything under the sun with you right now because that is freedom.
Mhm,
Think about it. Like that's freedom.
mhm.
And I do find, people are afraid to look at their stuff. Not everybody. A lot of people are like very willing, but there are some people, of course, that are not, and it holds them back.
I
I remember
agree.
working with a guy, and he was acting like his father. He was angry. He'd come in and he'd go, you know, I just get, or he and his wife would come in, and then he came in alone. And his wife would say, he's like his father. And he would get so pissed. I'm not like my dad. Da, 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 da. And I sat down with him and I said, one on one, I said, when you admit that you're like your father, it doesn't mean his dad was this huge rager and would blow up the
Sure.
house, alcohol, the whole thing. He was not to that extreme, but he did fly off the handle. Like he did have some of that stuff. How could he not? It's on his roadmap.
It's
Like
all we know until we
it's on
learn
his
something
roadmap.
different, right. There's no
Well,
shame in it. It's like, wait, how
no.
could you know how to do it different?
No, but I sat there like I did with all my clients. I would always say to my clients, like, you're in a sacred space. We're in the sacred vault in here. You can say anything to me. I don't care. Like, I've got you. I've got
Yeah,
you. And I can
yeah.
hold space, like badass hold space. And I like go there, be vulnerable. And he sat there with me and he started bawling and he goes, I said, even if you're a little bit like your dad, you've got to freaking say it. And he looks
Mm,
at me and he goes, I'm a little bit like my dad. And he started bawling. And then he
mm.
gets done. He goes, I just feel like I lost 55 pounds. And I was like, that's what I'm talking about. Now that's not going to trigger you, which I love trigger. Like that's a big thing I talk about. But yeah, like we've got to be willing to look at our stuff and realize. And people would come in and say to me, Michelle, I can't say this to anybody. I just got to say it to you. I'm like, okay, let me hear it. And they'd say it to me. And I'm thinking, do you know how many other clients? And when I lived in Nashville, I was telling you, I had singer songwriters, I had movie stars, I had people that had billions of dollars and people that were housewives. Like I had everything in
Sure.
between. Everybody's the same.
The same.
Sorry.
You're
I
not
don't
unique.
care. I don't care how much money you have. I don't
Yeah.
care if your husband's on television or a plastic surgeon. I don't care.
Yeah.
Everybody's got the same stuff.
Yep.
That was such a beautiful experience in Nashville for me because I had a lot of these people as clients and we all have the same stuff.
If you're human, you've like my mom always says, where there's people as problems, like people are just messy. And also, like,
Totally.
we all are connected and we all have similar struggles or journeys, even though, each one is unique and different in their own way. I do like to always say to people when they think their problem is the worst problem ever, I'm like,
Yeah.
try me. I bet.
Totally.
I bet I've heard it before, all of those things.
I love that. I do live events, and one of the first things I do in most of my live events actually is I will put people in small groups of like whatever, 5 to 10 people, and I say, "Okay, go," and I give them all prompts. And one of the
Okay.
things I ask them to do is, so share with your small group. This is on day 1, like in the first hour. Like just go and do this. Share with the group like who you are, where you're from, all the easy stuff. And then I say, share with the group if you want. You don't have to, but something that you're scared to death to tell the rest of the world. And they do. And I have had so many people come up to me over all the years of doing live events. They come up to me at the end of the 3-day event that I do, and they'll say, that thing you had us do in the first hour of day 1 was the most transformative experience I've had in years. Thank you. Like, thank you
Wow.
for helping me to say that out loud and get this outside. It that's the thing is we resist being vulnerable. And I'm not saying you have to put your stuff on social media by any means. That's not, but that's actually one of the first pillars in the book is I own my reality. I take
Mm,
responsibility for who I am. And it doesn't mean you blame yourself or judge yourself. It's just like owning who you are. It's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And the thing that people say is that I couldn't believe out of a group of, let's say, 8 people, more than half said they the same thing that I had. I'm like, I told you,
There you
we're not alone
go.
in our crap. Like we all
No.
got it.
I think the human nature thing is to think, if I say this out loud, who will still love me? And the
Yep.
truth is often when we say it out loud, you become more lovable, not only to yourself, but to others as well. Which is such an interesting, is it dichotomy? Like it's
Yeah.
just like why we resist it is so wild. But I think it's part of that second chair that you mentioned, where our persona and that performer self is just so resistant to opening up that, yo, I don't have it all figured out. I'm not in my adult chair right.
You got it, honey. That's it. You got to have your adult because your adolescent won't ever tell anybody.
Yeah.
And we've got to be willing to move into that adult and be brave.
Mm,
Say it. Just freaking say it. And again, oftentimes it's the first person to say it to is just yourself. You
yeah.
know, I'm drinking too much.
Yeah.
I think I'm getting high every day. I don't think that's a good idea anymore. I think
Yeah.
this. I think I think I don't like this relationship and I want to leave. I think that I want to move. I don't like this job. I've got to do something. I can't do this anymore. Like when we admit it, it actually gets the energy moving. Otherwise, we're kind of stuck. People ask,
Mhm.
how do I get unstuck? I go, you got to own what's going on in your life.
Mm.
What's the pink elephant in the room you don't want to look at? Well, my kid may have ADHD, but I don't want to admit it because that's going to be a whole battle and road I got to walk down. Then you're stuck until you actually investigate that. And and then all of a sudden the energy gets moving and you start having ideas along the way. And maybe it's not so bad. It's the ego that
Mhm.
resists it and says, again, it's making up a story or assumption. Well, my God, if you do this, it's going to be the worst thing in the world and people are going to make fun of you. And blah, blah. Nope, it never really happens.
Right. By
Life
the way,
goes
they
on.
still have ADHD whether you address it or not.
Exactly.
So, are you
Exactly.
gonna make your life easier and learn how to work with it or not?
Exactly.
So, we're kind of talking about the first pillar, which you mentioned is owning your reality. Can you talk through the kind of basic broad strokes of the other 4 pillars and give
Yeah.
the listeners just some kind of insight into what those are?
Yeah, for sure. So the first one again is I own my reality or I take responsibility for my life. Again, that's not to invite in blame or shame. It's just saying, hey, I think I want a divorce. I think I want a separation. I want whatever it might be. Number two is, and I remember writing the book, I thought, okay, something that everyone needs more of is self worth
Mm,
and self love.
yes.
Without a doubt, I don't care who you are on the planet, we all could use more of this. So, how do you take care of both of those? And what I found is, and again, I want to back up and say the 5 pillars are based on 20 plus years of working with clients and people in groups. These are the 5 things that I found I taught the most over 20 some years. So these are it. So the second one again is I practice self-compassion
Mm.
because when we practice self-compassion, we are able to build our self-worth and self-love.
Mm,
Self-compassion is that loving voice that we may have to cultivate. Most of us do, because most of us just have the voice of the ego, unless we have our adult self that's more conscious, that has the ability to reach for that. I call it your best cheerleader self. Like, who's your best cheerleader? So you want to create a voice that is whoever you want. It could be your loving mother, your loving great grandmother, Jennifer Aniston, or Bradley Cooper. I don't care. Yeah.
that sounds kind of nice, actually.
I talk about in the book, which someone called me the other day when we were referencing something. They called me Khaleesi. I'm like, oh, I like Khaleesi.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, pick a voice. And when you're beating up on yourself, you have to turn toward and allow that voice to speak to you. That's the self-compassionate voice. Self-compassion, oh my God, turns us around and in
Yes.
such profound ways. And it's not linear. People think,
Mm,
well, if I practice this for 3 weeks, well, then I act differently. I'm like, you may act differently in 2 days and it won't look like what you think it's going to look like. You might make, let's say, a choice to start going to the gym 3 days in because you just feel like you want to nurture yourself in this way. And it's like, I wasn't even thinking about starting a gym membership. It's like, yeah, but you're loving yourself in a little different way. So it's not linear. It's a spiritual sort of timeline. It's more like this than like this.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, the next one is I feel my emotions. That's number 3. Good God, Kelly. When I would ask people, how does that make you feel? They go, what? What do you mean? I'm like, how does it make you feel? Like, you don't even need to know the name of the emotion. That's what people would get stuck on. I'm like, just feel it in your body. What are you feeling? Well, I feel it in my head. I'm like, drop below your chin,
Mhm.
not chin up, but chin down. Get curious. What's going on in there? I don't feel anything because so many of us are very disconnected from the body. And oh my God, as you know, if you do personal work, you know the power of feeling your
Oh
emotions.
my God, it's everything.
It's our superpower, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When we feel our emotions, we move the logs through the river, as I was
Mhm.
saying before.
Mhm.
We are more intuitive. We have downloads sometimes from our higher self, spiritual being, whatever you want to call it. But holy moly, we are able to use our heart. And this is not airy fairy. Our heart becomes our internal navigation system. So even like, for example, being on different podcasts, when people want me on a podcast, I don't look anybody up if I don't know who
Yeah.
they are. I feel in my heart.
Mm.
I ask myself, how does this person make me feel? And if my heart opens, it's a yes. I don't care if they have $1 million a month or 2, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I know that my heart's going to lead me down the right path.
Mm.
When we live with feeling our emotions, we start working the muscle of the heart. It's such a beautiful process and people change. And when we feel our emotions, it helps us with our anxiety, with our depression, with our codependency, with our control. I mean, you name it. And we unfortunately are born with the ability to feel our emotions. Everybody feels their emotions. I don't care what gender you are. Every little boy and every little girl cries. Everybody does. When they fall down, they're hurt. They run to mommy because they have a bloody knee. Everybody does. We learn not to feel
Yeah.
based on what sort of reflection or validation or lack of validation did we get when we were growing up? So if you
Mm.
got made fun of when you cried, you're going to shut that down. If your mom or dad couldn't meet you when you were feeling sad or you were in grief because your goldfish died or your dog died or your grandmother died and they didn't know what to do with it, then you don't know what to do with it. And again, I'm building my roadmap. My
Sure.
roadmap says we should not feel these emotions because nobody knows what to do with them. They're kind of weird. I'm just going to shut those down. So, yeah, when we learn how to feel our emotions, gosh, everything in life changes. But most importantly, we are able to live in this beautiful flow state that's intuitive and we're guided. And it's like, it's a whole new reality. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Well, you mentioned earlier even that guy saying it felt like taking a weight off, and that's often what
Yeah.
I feel. I mean, I talk about on the podcast a lot. I think it's interesting that we put such a bad connotation to crying because
Mhm.
crying to me is one of the best releases I have. So I call them emotional showers now. Like it just feels like
Oh,
cleansing, like I'm just
love that.
releasing. But I also really relate to feeling like you just that that weighted vest you put on at the dentist to go through the x-rays. Like that's what it feels like to me when you just take it off and you can breathe because you actually allowed yourself to acknowledge and feel what was going on inside. And
Yep.
spoiler alert, like we were saying earlier, it's gonna happen anyway. You
Totally.
can either acknowledge it and feel it or let it guide you kind of unknowingly to make all these decisions in your life. So it's just like, what are you gonna choose?
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I like, what did you say? It's an emotional shower? What'd
An
you call it?
emotional shower, yeah,
I love,
crying.
I'm going to have
Yeah,
to borrow that. That's so
take it.
I think about crying and really deeply feeling our emotions. It's sort of the same feeling, like when you, especially when it's something big and you can feel it rising up.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me in a lot of ways, like right before we're going to throw up.
Oh, for
It's like,
sure.
I don't want to do this. I don't want to do it. And then after
Yes.
you throw up, you feel
You feel
so much
better.
better.
Yeah.
When you have that really big emotional release, it's
Yeah.
kind of like post throwing up.
100%. That
Okay, pillar number 4.
number 4 is where we
This
are.
is
Yeah.
so good. This is a good one. This is one of my favorite. I mean, they're all my favorites. This is a really good one though, because we're so bad at it as humans. I own my triggers.
Love this one too. Yeah.
I love this one. So triggers, I've said this for years and years and years. Triggers are a gift. And here's why. Because triggers, when we are triggered, it's an emotional response, or excuse me, even if it's an emotional and physical response to something that is done outside of myself by, again, so it's a person that has done something or said something. It could be a movie I'm watching. It could be something I'm just observing in the park and it triggers me. There's a physical response that comes up through me that brings an emotion with it. And when we're triggered, what's actually happening is that thing outside of me is mirroring
Mm.
a belief or an emotion that's inside of me that comes up and rises up on a silver platter and lands right in front of my face. Like, and this is, we all have this stuff. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. I
Mm.
don't matter. I'm invisible. Nobody listens to me. All of those are within all of us. And when we're triggered, that's what's rising up for us, not to us, for us. And what most humans do is instead of feeling it and getting curious about that belief that's rising up for us,
Yeah.
we turn to a friend or family member or husband or wife or whomever and say, can you believe Kelly said that about me? I can't believe she did that. Blah, 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 blah. This is what happened, yada, yada, yada. And then guess what? That person's going to validate me and say, God, Kelly's so rude. I can't believe she said. I'm like, you're right. She is rude.
Yep.
And then that beautiful belief starts to fall back down and it's back down in the unconscious mind. So I love getting triggered because it's like, give it to me. It's one of my beliefs that I have down in that unconscious mind that settled down and they're around the age of 3 for most of us. And then it rises up. It's again, it's a way to clean up our roadmap and update our roadmap.
Yeah, it's just information more than anything.
Yeah.
And if you,
But
like you said, stay curious, if you can stay curious and hold space for it, often it does lead you just closer to yourself and your own map of like even understanding what is driving you. Like to me, the mirror thing you're talking about goes so deep because it can be who we pick to be in relationships with and all
Mhm.
of the things that we can carry so much shame about later. But again, it's all information. And so when you're in it, if that's happening and you continue to get triggered over and over and over, okay, what is it here to show you? It's here to show you something.
Every time,
Mhm.
every time. And people will ask me, well, maybe I'm just mad. Can't I just get angry? Maybe it's just anger. And I'm like, yeah, here's how you know the difference. If you are cut off let's say you're going to Whole Foods and you're waiting for this parking spot. And you know how hard it is to park in that Whole Foods in Nashville.
Oh, it's terrible. Yes.
A damn Trader Joe's. It's even harder in
That's
Trader Joe's.
worse. Yes.
Okay, we're going to Trader Joe's and I'm waiting for that parking spot. And I'm waiting and waiting. This guy's walking out and he backs his car out. And then I'm about to pull in and someone else pulls in and takes it. And I am hot. I'm so mad because I've been waiting, waiting, waiting.
Yeah.
So I walk in the store. I'm still mad. And then I start shopping and I have my apples in the cart and everything. And then I kind of forget about it and it's gone. That's just, hey, I'm angry. This guy took my parking spot, but I'm over it. Done. Not thinking about it. If I go into the store, I'm still thinking about it. An hour later, 2 hours later, I'm talking about, can you believe people do that? That's so rude. And it's bothering me. It's like in me. And I keep
Yeah.
thinking about it. It keeps
Yeah.
coming to my consciousness. That's a trigger. That's a trigger versus just being angry because someone did something that, kind of ticked me off. Have you ever been with friends and you're watching something or someone says something and you might be offended or someone else in your group is offended and you're like, why are you so upset about that? It's so not a big deal. And you're
Yeah.
like, and they're like, well, what are you being? How are you offended? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not, but you are. It's because they had that belief rose up in them, but maybe nobody else. Maybe two people they had that same belief. So it's really fun, like when you truly understand what triggers are. And in the adult chair book, I think it's I can't remember off the top of my head, but 6 or 7 step process that walks you through how to move through a trigger. It's pretty
Mm,
darn simple, but you got to get curious. And then you work down like, what's the root emotion? What's the new belief? And then it's updating your program. The
yeah.
more you do that, holy moly, we're emotionally regulated way more. We have more peace in our lives. We can spend more time in our heart. Again, it's like so many great things happen when we're able to work through that trigger.
What is the quote? If it's hysterical, it's historical. Am I
Yes.
getting that right? Yeah. And that's
Yes.
always, that's kind of what you just described. If someone's having a big reaction or you're having a big reaction, but it doesn't necessarily match what just happened, it's probably from your roadmap at some
100%.
point. Okay. That's really,
100%. And I was someone in my 20s. I mean, I was definitely, even in my late teens, like emotionally dysregulated. I was up
yeah.
and down, up and down, up
Yeah.
and down. I was like all over the place. And I remember in my early 20s when I really got on this journey of like, I'm going to figure this thing out. I got to learn how to love myself. I'm going to learn how to build self-worth, all these things. Did inner child work. And I thought, okay, that's something that really turned me around was looking and investigating these root beliefs that
Mm,
are in the triggers. I hardly ever dysregulate anymore. Like it's like a night and day experience from
yeah.
how I used to live. So it's
Yeah.
powerful, powerful work. And then the last one, which everyone's so good at, is I set healthy boundaries.
Yeah. Right. You must have found a lot on the
Oh,
podcast. The listeners know this is where I struggle.
yes, yes. So this is another topic. I just did a whole boundary course on this. It's on my website because I'm so passionate about helping people set healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to do that well unless we were modeled it growing up. It's on my roadmap. My roadmap does not contain healthy boundaries. It does contain codependency and people pleasing and
Sure. Right.
enmeshment. You can't set boundaries when you're in mesh. Just saying, I had to learn how to do that. So, yeah, that's why that last pillar that anchors everything in. To me, what I learned again after seeing clients for so many years and my own journey with boundaries, because I was horrible at it. I write about that in the book too, how I overcame that. But for me, what I found was, because I'd say to my clients, like, here's a boundary script. Clearly, first of all, let me back up. When I would suggest to somebody, hey, what do you think about setting a boundary with your fill in the blank, your kid, your mother, your husband, your wife, your friend? Most people would come back and say to me, I'm not a confrontational person. I'm not setting a boundary. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I did not say to be confrontational. I asked you to set a boundary, two very different things, right?
Sure.
But people have issues with setting boundaries because most people think boundaries are like yelling, screaming, raging. And again, another girl I was talking to the other day in a podcast, she goes, I was one of those bosses. She was like a big CEO. She said, oh, I would like yell, scream, and tell people off. And I go, that's a confrontational boundary.
Right.
That's not healthy. I called her. I said, that's not healthy. She goes, oh, I know that now. I was really mean to people. I go, but that's what people think boundaries are.
Mm,
That's inappropriate confrontation. It's not a healthy boundary. Healthy boundaries just teach people how we want to be treated. They are a simple request. Like, hey,
Mhm.
Kelly, would you mind showing up on time when we do our weekly podcast? Because I feel like I'm sitting here waiting, or you always show up at the last minute. It's really uncomfortable. And I like to chance to settle in a little bit. So
Yeah.
that's it, done.
Yeah.
But what I found was I would give people boundary scripts for all these years. And I'd say, okay, let's do this. We're gonna role play in my office. Let's go. You're gonna say this to your husband. Okay, here I go. And they would do it in my office and they go home and then come back the next week. They go, couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. What I realized was this to me is the magic ingredient in setting boundaries. It is self-worth.
Mm.
If you don't have really healthy, solid, well, actually, there are two things. There's self-worth. Let me explain. When you go into a jewelry store and you go, I want to see all your precious diamonds, your precious stones. Where are they? In the jewelry store. In the back. They're in the back of the
Oh.
store, closer
Yes.
to where the people that are working there are,
Yeah.
behind an alarm. Because why? They're more valuable than the rest, right?
Right.
Okay. So as a human, if I
Oh
don't
my
feel that
goodness.
I'm right,
Yes, I just
this is
clicked
like,
for me. Yeah.
right? If I'm not valuable, if I don't feel like I'm valuable, which means I have healthy, high self-worth,
Mhm.
why in the world would I set a boundary? I won't. I can't do it. I can't do it. And I realized I've been giving people boundary scripts for years.
Yeah.
They keep coming back going, I still can't do it. I can't do it. We would role play in my office. They go, I don't know. I still can't do it. I'm like, okay, come on. Come on. I can't do it. I can't do it. Self-worth. I started building self-worth. I said, okay, we're going to go at this at a different angle. When people, and this is my own experience with them too, the more I valued myself, the more my tolerance for someone infringing on or bumping into one of my boundaries went way down. Kelly, I was not good at boundaries. I was so codependent and enmeshed. It started happening almost automatically.
Yeah.
And I would just, what would come out of my mouth was like, hold on a second. That's not okay with me. No
Mhm.
yelling, no screaming. But that was my favorite boundary statement. I'm like, hold on. That's not okay with me. And I would surprise myself. And my clients started saying the same thing. They're like, wait a
Mhm.
minute. It almost is automatic. And I know now something doesn't feel right
'Cause
within
you're
me,
connected to your body. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Something doesn't feel right,
Right.
but it doesn't feel right because I value myself. And I know that I'm so valuable. What's happening outside of myself, outside of the boundary, out there,
Mm.
something's not right. I need to speak up.
Mhm.
Then we can do the scripts.
Okay. It's weird because when I first started setting boundaries, I tell this story a lot, but I remember the very first boundary I ever set with someone, I got off the phone and I sobbed. Like, I just cried and cried
Yeah.
because it felt so mean to me. Like, that
Yeah.
was what it felt like. But the reality is the more I set boundaries,
Hmm?
it was interesting because it's actually, like, a little more cruel to not set boundaries because you're not being honest, is what I really realized. And
Right.
then you're not only not being honest to the other person, but you're not, like you said, valuing yourself. And
Mm.
so you're not only being a little bit mean to them by not being honest, you're being mean to yourself. Like I
Yeah.
was very self-abandoning for so long, thinking this is the way to show people I love them and, the self-sacrifice kind of thing. And I
Yep.
really realized that's not even that nice. It's very self-serving to soothe my nervous system is what it was. And that's it.
Yes.
But it creates
Yes.
more problems for everybody.
Because it builds resentment,
It totally builds resentment. That's the
mhm,
truth. Yes.
which
Because
is
what go
go ahead.
ahead.
No, 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 finish. You're good.
Well,
Oh, you're on a roll. Keep going.
whenever people now, it's like when I set boundaries, I'm realizing people trust me more. Like, I have a lot of friends who have really started to trust me in a whole new way. And I can tell, like, then they step into that and then they kind of do it for themselves and they know I'm going to respect that. And it's deepened our kind of relationships that I can have to such a higher level. Like, we can just go so much deeper because we know it's a safe space because
Yes,
there's boundaries.
absolutely. Absolutely. And when we build the resentment, it just happens automatically, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm so bad at you, but I'm not going to say it. It's like it starts to build and build and build and build and build. Those are the logs again in the beautiful river that we are.
Mhm.
They're the logs that keep building. That's the resentment. And then what happens is those are the people that say to their partner, I'm done. I'm just done. I want to end the relationship." And the partner is like, "What? I thought we
Yeah,
were
they're
happy."
shocked. Yeah,
About
right.
what? Or the friends that all of a sudden have this huge explosion all over you
Mm.
and it's out of left field and you're like, "Wait, why are you what's happening here? Why are you so freaking mad?" It's like because they never said anything for days, weeks, years, and it built, and then it's like the whole thing just
Right, and
falls
you had
apart.
no idea there was even a problem.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't even know.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, well, I feel like I could keep talking about all of this stuff forever, but I want the listeners to go buy the book. So, if you had to just summarize maybe some of the things that we talked about, like what is one thing to anyone listening
Mhm.
that you could just say, what is your hope for the listeners and the readers of your
Mhm.
book? What do you really want this book to bring to people?
Oh, you said the magic word, which is hope.
Mm,
You know, I don't like the word healing because to me it always implied that I was broken. And people will go, "You need to
yeah.
heal that." I'm like, I'm not broken. And
Yeah.
that was one of my wounds was that I'm broken. I'm like, it's not that we need healing, but we need hope that we can transform our lives. And the way that I've always taught, and whether it be a course or a live event or even written the book, people have mirrored this back to me, and I didn't even know it just by mistake. Even on the podcast, they're like, "Everything you say is so simple.
Mm,
You've changed my life. Thank you so much. You simplify everything." I'm like, I don't mean to. It's just how I think. I'm very simple. I remember a lady, she emailed in, and I think I've done 20. I do a lot of my own episodes on the show. On my podcast, I just talk about all the stuff you and I are talking about right now.
yeah.
But I had a woman, she emailed in, and I've done 25 episodes on codependency alone. And she emailed in and she says, "I've been in therapy for 10 years." And she says, "I just listened to one of your podcasts. It was 42 minutes long. And I just learned finally what codependency was." I'm like, "Oh,"
Wow.
she goes, "I love how you broke it down." I'm like, nothing is complicated. So
Yeah.
my hope that is that anyone that reads this book, and honestly, I think this book needs to be in schools. I say that all the time. Like, this is the book that should be in schools that we all should have learned when we were in high school instead of
Mhm.
taking all those stupid AP
I talk
classes and
about this
college
all the
level
time.
courses. Like,
Like, who needs calculus? When am I
who
using
needs
that in my adult life?
who needs AP physics? Like, but
Right.
do we need to learn how to function as healthy adults? Yeah,
Yes.
get the book. That is my hope. My hope is to make this planet a healthier place to live. And the tools in here are are really to empower people so they can do that. They
Mm,
can do it for themselves. They can do it for their children. Another thing people have asked me for years, they're like, "Oh my God, I'm not in my adult chair. How am I going to make sure my kids are? What do I need to do?" I'm like, "You learn how to live in your adult because
yeah.
our kids, they're sponges.
Yep.
So you can update their roadmap. Maybe you didn't know how to set boundaries when your kids were 0 to 6. Do it now.
Yeah.
And then they're going to learn from you along the way. They're always absorbing what we're doing in the household. So do it for yourself.
That is
I
so
just,
true. That's
yeah.
been my experience. My parents did that. They got into 12-step recovery, which I talk about a lot on the podcast, when I was 8. And it
Mm.
changed everything because I
Yes.
started to watch my parents change
Yep.
and learn boundaries and learn how to have healthy conversations. And it really taught me, oh, well, if there's something I don't know, I can go learn it too. If I didn't get the tools that I needed when I was younger. And just,
Exactly.
yeah, it was just such a helpful experience. So I love
Thank
that.
God. Thank God you had that experience,
No,
really.
truly.
But
Yeah.
so many of us didn't. Like they
Right.
didn't. And we had
Exactly.
to stumble our way through life trying to
Yes.
figure it out. So
Yeah.
the book is packed. People I've getting such great feedback, which really warms my heart, of course. But the book is written in a way that it's got tons of client examples that are really fun to read. Like, and people will say, "Oh my God, that was me." But I also have so many client experience, or excuse me, so many exercises in it.
Mm,
So it really is a transformational journey of self. So as you read it, you're going to learn how to set boundaries. I mean, I break the
yeah.
whole thing down for you, how you set a boundary. Here's what you do. Step 1, do this. Step 2. And I just had someone the other day, she's one of my coaches, and she said, "Oh my God, my client came in with the adult chair book and I had the adult chair book and we just started working the pillars together and we just walked through your book together." I was like,
Love
awesome. So
that.
I don't care how people use it, but please do use it because it's just a beautiful gift that I put into the world. And only because I want people to learn how to transform their lives because it's possible. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
us feel stuck. We don't know how to do it.
Yeah, it is definitely possible. Well, the
Yeah.
book I've mentioned is The Adult Chair, Get Unstuck, Claim Your Power, and Transform Your Life. I'll put that in the description of this podcast for you guys. As we've also mentioned, you have a podcast, the Michelle Chalfant. Did I
You
get
got
that?
it, babe.
Okay.
Yes.
Show Life from the Adult Chair. So you'll have way more conversations about this. And obviously, it sounds like a lot of knowledge being dropped. So I'll also put that in the description of this podcast for you guys. If people want to work with you in any
Mhm.
capacity, where would they reach out and find you?
Yeah. I would go to just go to theadultchair.com and that's my website. They'll see
Okay.
everything. And I have this really, I did a free master class for anyone that bought the book. So if anyone wants that master class, go to theadultchair.com/book. I'm going to keep it live for people
Mm,
because people absolutely went bonkers over it. I was like, okay, they loved it. And I said, well, I want to give that back to everybody. So if anyone wants that, go ahead and download that masterclass. It's really good. Really, it
okay.
goes over the whole book and teaches you how to use the book and everything. So,
Amazing. So
yeah.
theadultchair.com. You guys go check out the description of this podcast for all of these links. Michelle, this was so fun for me. This was like a fun friend conversation.
I agree. This was so fun. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you guys for listening.